Hi, this is Mike Zito, and you're listening to Talking Blues.
I see you post videos on Facebook of you just noodling on the guitar.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, not being a player, when you do that, and this applies not only for that, it could be for any solo that you do, but what goes through your mind when you're sitting there just noodling away?
Yeah, that's interesting. You know, I'm a noodler at heart. I came up in a music store in an old school guitar shop. It was in South St. Louis that I worked. It was in my neighborhood my entire life. It was opened the year I was born. They opened that guitar shop, so I was there all as a kid, and I worked there for 10 years. And you're there for 10 hours a day, 6 days a week, and the thing to do is to noodle, to sit and play guitar all day and have it in your hand. And one, I enjoy sometimes I just enjoy. I don't know if I'm even thinking about what I'm doing. I think I enjoy the comfortable feeling that I'm holding my guitar, and that's probably I always enjoy playing. That's probably the most enjoyable time where I'm just like, oh, I'm just having fun. Like I was when I was a kid. Like, oh, I just want to plug the guitar in and I'm not really practicing. I'm not really getting anything done. I'm not really playing music at all. You know, my dad would constantly yell, play a song. Don't you know any songs? Play music. Because all he heard was blah, 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 blah. But ironically, you mentioned that I do it online. And, I don't think I would have ever even thought about that. But this year being home with the quarantine, I noticed for the first time that like I'm way behind on the world. Like apparently I've gotten old and the world's moved on because people don't get in vans much and drive around the world and go play music for people anymore. Like it's not really what happens in the real world. People play music on YouTube and Instagram and Facebook, and like I didn't know that. I knew it, but I guess I just didn't realize to the extent. And what I noticed was a lot of my friends, like say a Joe Bonamassa, he's just sitting there playing guitar for like a minute, and then it has like, of course he's very famous, but it has thousands and thousands and thousands of views, and people commenting, and I was like, oh, okay, well I can do that. Like that's what I like to do. So somebody that works with me with social media said, you should just every day put your phone up and do your jamming. So what's going through my head is, ironically, if I'm doing it with no camera on, nothing. Like it's almost like therapy, like a mindless kind of enjoyment.
But is it nothing thinking about the music, or is it nothing you might be thinking about what am I going to have for dinner? Noodle, noodle, noodle.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. If it's going to be like, oh, I'm going to write a song or I'm going to learn something, well, now my thought process is like literally pulled into the guitar. Whereas, yeah, like I may not even plug the guitar in and just do that and watch TV, or do it really quietly and watch if I'm in the hotel room, watch it on a show on my computer, or yeah, think about what are we doing later, or it's the equal of say taking a walk, and it just kind of maybe gets my head together about what are we doing later, what's going on, what do I have to do today. I always told people, and I still do, when I worked at the music store, we were next to a golf pro shop.
Right.
Later, the store moved out to like a nicer neighborhood with people that had money, and there was this golf shop, and so we got this clientele that I wasn't used to. doctors, lawyers, professional people. And they would come in and we started to carry more expensive guitars, and they would look at the guitar. Oh, let me see that guitar, like maybe a $3,000 guitar, something that's seemed very expensive. It is very expensive. And then they would kind of hem and haw and think about it. And they go, well, I don't know. And I'd say, well, they go, well, I'm just not very good at guitar anymore. I used to play. And I go, well, are you good at golf? I'm like, no, not at all. But you play, how much was your last, the last putter, or your last iron, or your last,
Yeah.
driver that you bought? Think about that. I mean, they spent all this money, and they said, it's just for fun. You do it for therapy. Well, I would tell them that's exactly the same thing. And you can play guitar, rain or shine. And I sold a lot of guitars that way. Like, hey, it's therapy, So people will say, they'll come talk to me. Oh, I play guitar. Oh, not like you. I just play for fun. And I say, hey, man, I play for fun too. Like, that's mainly what I do is play for fun. And then there's this other thing like, oh yeah, I got to go like make some money or figure out a way that people will listen to me play guitar, which is fun also,
Right.
but it is a job. That's like another thing. So I know I went on a tangent there, but I told you I have no problem talking.
Okay, so when you're noodling and you're not thinking about what you're going to do next in terms of what you're going to play next, but you're
Right.
doing stuff, but you're not thinking about it, how different is that from you being on stage and going into solo? Like, do you ever think about what you do?
That's a good question, and that's part of it is it's funny. It's just like life. It's like I don't want to overanalyze what I'm doing when I'm on stage ever. And I think that if I get some noodling in during the day and I not play, my hands feel good, and hopefully I can just kind of be loose and not think too much about what my hands are doing, like specifically, like, oh, I need to do this, I need to do this. If I can get away from that thought process, then I'm looking at the audience and I'm letting their energy kind of maybe decide what I'm going to do next. And I'm listening to the band and how is the band playing? And is the drummer excited? Is he, what's going on? That's where I want to be musically, less like worried about the details of exactly where my finger goes and did I play this lick to its perfection or something, and more like, is my playing in tune with the band and the energy in the room? Am I trying to lift the room? Am I trying to get their attention? Am I trying to draw them in? So it's to me, it's like life. It's like I can't walk around and stare at the ground and watch my every step, but I definitely need to know where I'm going, like a little bit, So it's probably me noodling probably helps me to not overanalyze what I'm going to be doing later on stage, because that's not fun at all. And I don't think, to me, the audience always wants to see me having joy.
Right.
Like, they're not interested in me being, the worst thing you want to see is some guy on stage getting frustrated and not, I've done that before, early in sobriety, being just so frustrated with myself or the band, or it didn't sound the way I want it to, or whatever kind of selfish, self-centered things there are there. The audience wants to see me happy. When they see musicians happy, it makes them happy.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it. They're probably similar. I hope. Hopefully, I'm not thinking so much about what I'm playing, and I'm listening to the music, and I'm kind of going along for the ride. I want to be in amazement with the audience as well. I want to be witness. Like, usually when I'm in that state of mind, like, things may happen and I'll go, ooh, don't even know how to do that. What was that? Like, where'd that come from?
And
Like
how
a
do I
little
do it again?
bewildered. Yeah, I don't know how to do that again. I want to. That's what I want. I want to do the same thing. So try to be open, and I always think of the Allman Brothers. Like that's my favorite. That's kind of my like. That's a good. They're like a jazz band. Like
Hmm.
they're not a total jam band. They're not the Grateful Dead. They have like this outline. They have like an intro and a middle and an ending. They know how they're going to get in and out. But then there's these parts in there where they're like, let's see what happens.
It's interesting you mentioned them because this week or last week I purchased the Live at the Fillmore Concerts. So it's like 6 or 7 concerts.
Oh, wonderful.
And it's like reasonably cheap on iTunes. So it's like $16 for 60 songs or whatever. But it's like 6 different concerts. And you hear many of the same songs played over and over again, but never the same way. And I'm so I love that album. I mean, I've always loved the Live at the Fillmore, and I know those songs pretty well. But to hear it played differently, but within the same week, it's fascinating.
Yeah. It is. It's amazing. After all of the years of that is a record that was like just before my time, but I was so lucky. I worked at this guitar shop, and I was 18, and everyone else was 40. Like real. I thought they were like really old. Like 40 years old or something. And so, I couldn't listen to my records. We could only listen to. There was a 5 CD changer, and 2 of the 5 CDs were Live at the Fillmore. Like the original album that was released.
Right.
And so I was just told, it was like beat over the head, like that's good music. That's what good music sounds like. That's good music, like just over and over and over. And later, if there was all that mystery back then. We didn't have the internet. You didn't have, like you say, you didn't have all these concerts. You just had this is the show, so that's what they put on there.
Right.
And then later you find out like they were doing several nights. They weren't even the headliner. Like they were like the middle act, and I think Johnny Winter was the closer at those shows.
Wow.
Those are Bill Graham shows.
Yeah.
And then I heard some of the recordings later, and I thought, well, that's not the same way, or it doesn't sound like a mistake, but it sounds like they were trying something else, or they didn't get there, but I listened to that record for so long. I just thought, so Duane Allman never plays a wrong note. He is the greatest guitar player ever. And then I go, oh no, that's just the one they put out. Like, cause it was really good. Of course he's going for it. Like, but I didn't know that back then. It was, it's quite different, these days to have, and I don't know if it's good or not. Partly it's good to have all that information. And I also kind of miss the idea that I didn't used to know what the band looked like or,
right.
Used to buy records. You didn't even know who they were. It was like a drawing or like a Blue Oyster Cult record. It looked like they were aliens. Like, who's the band? Oh my gosh. Anyway.
How did you get into the guitar? How did that start?
Well, no one in my family played music at all, ever. And we were pretty, poor. I didn't know it then. We had a good life, and my dad worked. He worked at Anheuser-Busch,
right,
St. Louis for like 38 years. And he was really a lot older than me. He was almost 50 when I was born. So I was born in 1970. He was born in 1922. So we were like really different people. He was like being raised by like a grandparent. So he was in World War II and listened to big band music, and everyone was older than me. So I was kind of like an only child that lived with grandparents. Because my brother's like 18 years older than me. My sister's 16 years older. Um,
Wow.
so I only listened to my dad's records, is what I was getting at. They were all kind of older and out of the house, and so the first, 5 or 6 years, all I heard was Frank Sinatra and Dizzy Gillespie and Dean Martin, just whatever my dad listened to, and I loved it. I still do. So, but there's not really guitar. There's not much guitar on any of that. I saw the Jackson 5 on TV when I was 5 or 6, and that I kept singing and dancing, and was like really turned on when I saw little Michael Jackson, out there like rocking. So I started singing in talent shows when I was 4 and 5 and 6. Getting in front of people. I wanted to get in front of people and like sing and do stuff. So, but the guitar didn't happen until 1978, and I was still 7, and it was like the end of the summer, and that year Van Halen, their first album came out early in '78, and so I was at a friend's house up the streets, and he had an older brother, and the older brother was like maybe 10 or 11, and was really into music and records and rock and roll. He was kind of the only guy around that was like what I would think of as a older brother, like a guy that's a couple years older,
Right.
kind of knows some cool stuff, And I went upstairs and used their bathroom, and I came out and I heard, well, it was Eruption by Eddie Van Halen.
Right.
I had no idea what it was. I just heard, and I thought it was like Star Wars, like a spaceship or something. I was like, what? I was like a little kid. Like, what is that? I went in, and the record was on. He wasn't in there, and I was just listening, and it was mesmerizing. Like, it was like colorful, and like it just, I don't know. It sounded like Star Wars. That's the only thing I could think of.
Mm-hmm.
And he came in and was like, "What are you doing in my room?" And I said, What is that?" He said, "It's Van Halen." And I was like, what is that?" He said, "It's guitar. It's electric guitar." I was like, "Guitar?" And he goes, "Yeah." And he like showed me the cover, And I was like, "Yeah, I remember somebody like Jackson 5 didn't sound like that, like." I just freaked out. I ran home. I was like, "Hey, so I need a guitar. Like, can we go?" And then I found out we had this music store, 3 blocks away. So I started going up there and staring in the window. So I got a guitar that year. I got a record player. That was a good year. I got a little record player, like a Snoopy record player, and I got a Harmony student guitar for Christmas that came with a little amplifier and a how to play guitar book. And like I said, no one knew how to play guitar. We didn't have any money for lessons. So I got that guitar, and I owned it till I was 14. And I just played it every day, completely out of tune. Like I had no idea what I was doing. I just beat on it and made noise on it and turned records up loud and like hit it and sang and tried to act like I was, doing something.
Right.
And I still do the same thing. And that was it. I don't know what it was about it. It just, and I'm going to be honest. I love blues and I love all kinds of music. And I cannot play like Eddie Van Halen, but to this day, that is my favorite all-time electric guitar player in the history of the whole world. I wouldn't even play guitar if it wasn't for him.
Right.
There was something so childlike and fun about his guitar playing. He's like a modern Chuck Berry. Like there was just so much fun that was coming out of this guitar, like humor and wackiness and virtuosity. And it just, that's all I listened to. And I never realized that, but people now will say, but he was very influenced by blues and Clapton and a lot of their songs. They kind of have, some of these songs have these bluesy, he's just playing pentatonic kind of sped up blues licks, so that was it. And then I got in high school and met guys that for the first time, like I met kids my age that played, that really knew how to play guitar, like knew how to tune it, knew how to play chords, that had taken lessons, and they had a band. And I wanted to join the band, and I found out, like, they were like, yeah, you don't know how to play guitar. Like, you're not even terrible. Like, you literally don't know how to play guitar. It's not tuned right. But I could sing, and they needed a singer, so I became the singer. And I would just bring my guitar, and then the kid that played guitar would show me stuff, and I'd watch him. And by the end of high school, I had gotten a few guitar lessons and sang in this band, and I could, like, by the time I was 18, I could play chords and licks, and I was like getting there. Like high school kind of got me going.
How much did the no lessons just pretend like you're playing for, I don't know how long, years, months, I don't know. But,
years.
Okay, so how did that have an effect on your playing? Like you probably had to unlearn some bad habits.
Yeah, and it's absolutely still that way, because I don't have that background, and I used to. There's a part of me that I can go there. I listened to an interview this past week with a wonderful guitar player, Josh Smith, who's become a good friend of mine. He's just super talented guitar player, and was like a young prodigy guitarist. And he was interviewing Julian Lage. If you're not familiar, was another child prodigy jazz guitar player. He's just like a brilliant, amazing jazz musician that I just listen to it. It overwhelms me. His not just the guitar, his music, And they were having this discussion, and he was talking about, studying with these jazz greats at the age of 12, and graduating high school early and going to Berkeley and all that. And it just hits me over and over again, like, yeah, like you have nothing in common with these people. Like, the only thing that we have in common is that we hold a guitar. Like, you are not like them, and I'll never be like them. Doesn't matter how much I'm in awe, but I would always, like, oh, I wish I could be like that. I thought, man, there's no way. Like, I don't have that. Do not have that background. I think that's one of the reasons I always liked Van Halen. He was self-taught and didn't know what he was doing. Kind of made this way, and I did get some good music lessons. I say music lessons when I was 18. So briefly, my very first ever professional guitar lesson that I paid for. I was 14, and the guitar instructor was like 17. And he taught, he was like everybody kind of knew him. He was kind of a rock guitar player in town. His name is Richard Fortis. And he was in a band around town, and people knew him. I took 2 guitar lessons with Rich. Rich is the guitar player in Guns N' Roses. He's been in the band for 20 years now.
Wow.
Like, he's in the band currently.
Right. With
Slash. So it's like Slash and my first guitar teacher.
Wow.
Is in the band, which is just a trip. And we're, great friends these days. And there were people around St. Louis that are like world-class guitar players, So another one that I got a guitar lesson from, he's been Jimmy Buffett's guitar player for 30 years. And he lived in, these guys lived in St. Louis. Mm-hmm. They had taken music lessons with a guy by the name of Duke Michalak. I'm going to say his name just in case he ever gets to hear this. And he was teaching music theory in his parents' basement. And it was a college credit if you studied with him. And so these two really gifted guitar players. Like they were like the big name guitar players at like the time, and they had all studied under this guy Duke. And so you had to get like on a waiting list, and this was 1990, so and it was like maybe $40 for an hour or something. Like it was a lot of money,
Right.
and you know, I had to pay myself, and so I got on the waiting list, and I got in, and for 6 months I took lessons with him, and he didn't play the guitar, so we took music lessons. He would show me how to play the major scale, like the do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do.
Right.
And then he had some music with a drum machine. And he'd go, okay, I'm going to play this music and let's jam. And I want you to play the scale, but don't play the scale. Like just use the notes in the scale and see if you can make up a melody. And of course, it's really, difficult at first because you learn this pattern. But that's all we did. We just got together, and he would tape the thing, and then you could take the tape home. And so we went through the modes. I remember like just all that stuff sounded so like, what is that? The modes. I don't know what it means. Oh my God. If I learn these modes, I'm going to be able to do, like, I'm going to be Steve Vai or some. And so we worked on this music, and he was very encouraging and fun and happy. Hey, what's happening? So exciting. And like 6 months in, he goes, we finished, and he goes, Mike, I think that's it. Like, I think we're done, He was like, I was like, we're done. He goes, yeah, I think you got it. And I was like, I don't have anything. I don't even know what we're doing. I don't even know what these modes are. Like, and he goes, no, you got it. I think you just need to go play. Do you have a real feel and a real, like a real natural feel, and you seem to have it all going for you. You need to go and play it all work out. Trust me. He goes, if you learn any more, I think we're going to mess it up. And of course, at the time, I was like kind of devastated. Like, wow, okay, so I guess this guy didn't like me. He doesn't want me to give him my money anymore. And so I just went and played in cover bands and bar bands and country bands and blues bands and rock bands and bands that made $50 a night, played 4 hours a night, played 5 nights a week, and I just did that for years and years and years and years. And by the time I was 25, one day it kind of hit me. I was like, wow, he's right. Like I get it. Like I get it. It made sense. Not everything, but like everything I needed to know for what I wanted to do. So I always thank him for not, the thing I learned the most back then was if I learned everything I learned, you have to forget when you go play. And if the more you learn, the more you have to forget. Or you are going to do that constant thinking about every detail. And that's not always music.
Right.
It's certainly not like maybe the music that I want to play or enjoy. So I still have bad habits, and like technique is not correct. It's like it's not right. I practice. I still watch like instructional. I teach instructional courses, which I think is ridiculous because I don't know what the hell I'm doing. And then I watch them, and I go like, why would anybody watch me? Like, I don't know what I'm talking about. So I'm always trying to work on I'm still, but I think at 50 years old, I finally realized like it is just, it has attributed to the way I play. So I cannot play like Julian Lage, but I don't think he can play like me either, but he probably doesn't want to.
Well,
I probably want to play like him, but I don't think he wants to play like me at all.
But, you're one hell of a guitar player as well. I mean...
Well, thank you. I'm not asking for a pat on the back.
I realize that.
I think I'm good at what I do, and I like what I do, and people, people like what I do. Um, you know, and I think part of it is that I am playing live, and it's emotional, and it's from the heart, and I'm playing what I feel. And all of my heroes, that's exactly how they play, you know. And it's one of the reasons I gravitated to the blues was it seemed like I would listen to those records like BB King live at the Regal, and they had different versions of the same song, like you were talking about the Allman Brothers.
Hmm.
And I would listen and go, so he's not playing the same solo. Like that's different solo than the first version earlier. And I started to early on realize like, yeah, they're improvising. You know, he's got a bag he's drawn from, but he's kind of playing what he feels in the moment. And because I just could not learn the songs, I wasn't good at learning things note for note. I couldn't figure out what the guys were playing. It always kept me from getting good gigs and good bands because I couldn't do that. I would just play whatever the hell I wanted. So I just started making my own band and doing things my way. And I would learn the song my way and just do my own thing. And in the end, it's worked out to be a blessing in disguise because I used to hate the way I sound because I don't sound like anybody else when I played. And that's all I wanted to do was sound like someone famous on a record, you know. And now I realize, like, well, you know, you sound like you. People would tell me, I don't know why you bring out a different guitar every night. It always sounds the same.
When did you think that
So,
you were going to be a musician?
yeah, definitely. Well, definitely some kind of entertainer from like I said, from a little kid. I was my dad did work like like a labor work job. Like he was in the labor union and worked at the brewery and worked machinery and my brother worked there and like I was definitely I didn't go to college and I didn't have a chance to go to college or anything, but I was not going to do that. I was definitely not doing that job. And I wanted to entertain and be on stage in one form or the other. And so I thought I would be an actor from the longest time as a kid, and guitar was just like something I did for fun. But by the time end of high school rolled around, I was so into the guitar, and I was meeting people that were like playing guitar for a living in St. Louis. And I hadn't met any, there was no actors that I met. There's not people making a living being an actor in St. Louis. There's not a lot of acting work. So it was like, yeah, I'll just do this music thing because that seems like, you know, you could come about the work pretty easy, you know. And by the time I was 18, I was like in a professional band with 40-year-old people learning to play 40 songs, you know, 10 songs a set, 4 sets a night. And that mentality is still in my head and it's going to be there forever. But it's kind of a trade, you know, I know how to do something. You know,
Did,
if
did you
all
ever,
else fails, I can work.
right? But did you ever doubt yourself?
Um, not not on the on the local level. No, like I didn't have maybe as much natural talent as other people. Like I had friends that took a few lessons and could just play like new, and they were way less interested than I was. They were like, yeah, you know. But I had this drive in me that really had nothing to do with the guitar. It had to do with like I want to be in front of people and I want to entertain. Like I like the idea of being an entertainer, telling jokes, singing, acting, dancing, music. And so I was not afraid to get in front of people. And so that I never had a doubt. Like whatever it was, I'll find a way to get in front of people. And that was the easiest thing. I didn't realize until I turned 18 that like, oh, every corner bar around this city 2 or 3 nights a week has like a band, like some kind of entertainment. And
Right.
I was like, well, I'll do that, you know, like I can do that. if these idiots can do it, I can certainly do it. Like they're not any better than me. And so I just learned the instrument and put my focus on, okay, I'm going to learn to play this instrument so I can get in front of these people. Because when I would get in front of them, they liked it. There was something about me like they liked, even if I wasn't good yet. I remember guys coming to tell me like, hey man, you're not playing in the right key. Like I can tell like you're not playing in the right key, so some of those notes don't sound right. But you got something. Like you're gonna be good, like when I was really young. They're like,
Right.
there's something you gotta, you got something going on. And so I just kept, and I was lucky just to be at that music store for 10 years and to be around all of these amazing musicians and great blues artists. Big George Brock, who just passed away this year, was my hero, and if you don't know, I mean, he was from Mississippi. He worked on a plantation and moved to St. Louis and became a professional boxer. And but always a harmonica player and a singer. And so I just knew him. He came in the store all the time. But later in life, he got his due. It became famous in the international blues world. And but I just hung out and watched these guys and talked to them and listened to them. And that was my education. I got an education like no other being at that store. So doubting myself was never like, I didn't care I don't know if I cared as much that if I was good or that you were better than me. It was like, oh yeah, but I'll go do it. Watch this. Like I was not, I don't know, man. I am not shy. And I have never really been shy. So I would just get on stage and let her rip and play every wrong note and have people yell at me on stage and tell me that sounds terrible. Don't do that again. Like that's how I learned, but I just put it out there and just kept trying to do it. And so no, but I don't think I did not have, there was not when you say doubt, my goal was not, I'm going to be famous. Watch this, I'm going to go be famous. My goal was, I'm not working at that brewery. I'm not working there. Like I'm going to do something else. Like I'm going to work at this music store, or I'm going to have some kind of guitar in my, like, I'm not doing that work. That work sucks. Like, so that was the goal. If I would have just played 5 nights a week in St. Louis, like guys did that for a living and still do, and have done it all their lives. They're not rich, but they make a living playing music in St. Louis. So that was my goal. And, I never ever thought I was going to be like some famous, like fame eluded me. And not until I met Walter Trout and I saw him or Tab Benoit, Tommy Castro, Joanna Connor, Coco Montoya, people like in the 90s that started to make a name on a national scene.
Right.
And they weren't the most famous, and they started to come to St. Louis in the mid 90s. And they were playing the same places I was already playing. But I noticed there was a cover charge when they played, and they had a CD for sale. And they were not playing, they were playing their own music. They had written their own songs. And that's when I was like, well, what is this? Like, what are they doing? How'd you make this CD? Like, what is this? What is Roof Records? What is Alligator Records? I've never heard of this. What's going on? I thought it was, if you were going to be on a record, it had to be, Capitol or Sony or RCA, or I didn't know about these other things. And that's when that door opened up. And I was noticing that these guys were traveling around in a van, playing at all the blues clubs around the country and around the world. And that's the goal. That was really my only goal then, was mid '90s. Was like, okay, I'm doing that. That what that Walter Trout guy is doing. Oh, I'm doing that. That's what I'm going to do. And certainly, I doubted myself then. Probably still do.
So, because why?
Well, then, one, I had been, by the time I was, I made a CD when I was 28, made my first album because I had, you know, caught on to all this. I opened up for Walter Trout the first time, and, he was larger than life. It was not a local guy. He did play like a bit. Well, the first time I opened up, it was a big room. He had like, I don't know, 500 or 600 people there. He had a song on the radio in St. Louis. We opened up. He had like, I mean, it was like, okay. But I was really cocky back then. And I was also drinking. And then I got into drugs. And I had opportunities, I had opportunities in the late 90s with Roof Records or with Alligator or Blind Pig. And but they all kind of found out that I by that same time, by the time I was 30 or so, I was like hooked on drugs and kind of a mess, and you know they weren't really interested. I kind of missed some opportunities back then, but I think I'm thankful because it really wouldn't have worked out very well. I would have not done well with any of it. But I think now I realize that more than ever, one, getting here is a dream come true. It's not easy. It's very hard, and there's millions of people that are is equally deserving that will never have the chance to just sell 20,000 records. Which when you know how it is. I mean, you live in America's hat. I'm just making a Canada joke. Don't get mad. You know how it is in America down here. It's like, you live in a house that's $100,000 and we think we're poor because we need to live. We're watching Cribs and they're in $1 million homes. So, you don't, you hear about these artists selling millions of records. You know how hard it is to sell 20,000 records today?
Which is like
God.
a serious number still, right? Like, I mean, most people,
it's
like
so
99,
hard.
yeah.
I still don't always do that. It's so hard. It's extremely hard. It takes. There's so many people that are deserving that have more talent, and what I do know is that I've had the gumption, like I've always had, that I show up. I realized at an early age, and I learned really when I got sober, like, it's not always the best that are successful. Um, it's who shows up and does the work. Not the best actors or actresses, actors. It's who moved to Los Angeles and pursued the work that get hired. And so I always tell everyone, look, this job is thankless, but if you really want it, it's there. You have to go get in a van and drive around for no money for years and years and years. You have to go do it. I still have people who come up and go, oh, I'm sorry, I've never heard of you before. And I go, well, that's why I'm here. That's why I drove all this way. So you could hear me. I mean, I didn't drive 12 hours for, a meal and a hotel room and a little bit of money. I drove here so you would leave and go, hey, that guy was pretty good. I liked his music, or, that's the job. And that's why in our genre, the most famous people generally are the ones that have been around the longest.
Mm-hmm. When we look at your life from the guy who said, I want to do that, I want to tour the world, I want to sell CDs, and a few years later, this is what you do. Like, you do tour the world, you sell CDs. Was there a moment where you thought, well, I've kind of not reached the goal, but this is the path that I had chosen and this is where I wanted to be?
Yeah. Oh no, definitely. Most definitely. And probably again more. It's probably been more reaffirming again this year, and it's been really good. You know, there was a time when, like noodling, where we started an
Yeah.
hour ago. Uh, you know, it was just, oh, I want to go play. Oh, I cannot wait to go play Friday and turn my amp up loud and get everybody excited, you know, and there's going to be some cute chicks there and, you know, it's going to be fun, man. I can't wait. None of it had to do with, um, I'm going to be famous. I've got to sell this many tickets. We've got to, you know, I need this many followers online. It had nothing to do with that. It was just like, oh, I cannot wait to go play my friends and blah, blah, blah. And then it became a goal of like, okay, I'm going to do that. And when I said, you know, maybe I second guess myself, I could second guess myself more now than maybe I did when I was younger, where I was like, oh, I'm just going to do that, you know, because once I finally got the chance to do this and some doors opened and it started to happen. And that's a whole other thing. That's a whole other thing. Now you're on a ladder, and now there's a business involved. There's an agency. There's a record label. There's a manager. There's you know, all these other things start to take form, and you know, they want you to make money. They're in business for money.
Right.
You know, I mean, sure, they're in the music and they love the music and they're in the music business, but now you're in the music business. It's not just we're going to go play Friday and we'll make a couple bucks and you know, and I it's so much fun. And now, you know, it becomes a thing where you're trying to work your way up. You know, you start to make a little money and get some things going and selling records, and you start to get some success, and then you're trying to maintain that success. And sometimes during maintaining that success, I might get the second guessing, like, I don't know, man, maybe I'm just not, you know, maybe I was good on the other level. Like maybe I don't know if I have what it takes, because the music is not the most important thing anymore
Right.
when you start to go down that path. It's like Bill Graham had this quote, my manager would always tell me, you know, it's not about the money, but it's about the money. You know, like, isn't that great? I mean, it just is. And so, you know, you get a chance to go out and tour, and then you get booked into these rooms you've only heard about, and then you only bring 50 people, and then the next time you bring 45, and then they don't book you again. And you're like, oh crap, like, you know, what are we gonna, like, and then you do something else, and then you bring some more people out, and now it's all about, like, you know, hey, you got to get, like, you need to sell tickets. And you know, when I got into the Royal Southern Brotherhood, that was, you know, that was a big successful rock band situation where it really elevated my career and my name, and I was with people that were more famous than me, and all of a sudden we were playing for much bigger numbers and audiences and bigger shows, and it's a it's like a big thrust, and to try to maintain that thrust requires a staff of
Right.
people. It's so, you know, that's a whole other thing, man. And I had to start going like, so do you want to do this? Like, you have to dress up and kind of become a character, you know? And
Mm-hmm.
And as much as I love to entertain and everything, as I've gotten older, like that's not me. And again, the people that I like, that I look up to, that's not who they are either. I mean, the guy that I told you I love, Eddie Van Halen was running around with no t-shirt on, a pair of shorts and tennis shoes, playing guitar, But as this music and genre and things progress and getting people out, you need a shtick, and I don't know that I'm good at it. So those are things that I started to second guess myself. Like, I don't know that I can do these things. But I'll tell you what. Uh, so that ladder that just always is like that staff that you have, they want more, 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 more. You got to do more. You got to do more. You got to do better. You got to do more. And then this year hit, and it just kind of hit me again. Like, God, you're so lucky to just even get to do what you do. And every time I've gotten to play any kind of a show this year, which is far and few between, it was fun. Fun, like it was fun 20 years ago,
Right.
like fun, like, oh my God, like, and there aren't shows. So like a friend owns a restaurant and would go, hey, all the musicians, no one's on tour in our area in Texas. And so on Thursdays, there's a patio. We're going to like do a jam if you want to come. Yes, I will come to the jam for no money and come play, please, because I haven't played all year. And it made me realize that feeling again. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'm just going to do what I like to do. Like it just hit me all over again. Like, yeah, if the latter happens, it happens, but I'm done with all that shit. Excuse my French. Like, I'm just going to do my thing. And I hope that everybody enjoys it, because I turned 50 last week.
Oh yeah, happy belated birthday.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm so long-winded, but you're just hitting on all the right elements. It just really hit me at the right time this time. Like, yeah, just if I, we would go do these gigs the past 10 years, and you play this one, you get on this one festival, and they love you there, and you're like, oh, I hope we can get on this festival. That's the one. You got to get on that. That's the big one. Oh man, why can't we get on that festival? And you're getting all these other festivals, and now there's no festivals, and I'm like, oh my God, I wish we could just play in front of people. There's just that always constant trying to get you on this ladder of success. And this year made me realize, oh, I hope we can just do what we've been doing. If we could just do what we've been doing, what a blessing that would be. If we could just get back to doing what we do,
Well, yeah, for sure, because it's crazy.
I hope that makes sense.
No, it makes total sense. And you're actually on the road right now, starting a short leg of the tour. What is that like at this point? I believe you did something like this not too long ago, a short tour.
Well, yeah, we tried. They're I guess you call it tours. I mean, this is like 6 shows over 10 days. They're very short, and it's kind of weird. Again, I mean, first of all, I certainly am a believer that this illness is real,
right?
And it's no joke. And I wear my mask. I wash my hands. We do everything that we need to do. I was already a little bit of a germaphobe to begin with, so the world's just catching up with me, which is great. I was always like, because I travel all over, and I'm like, ugh, don't get too close, sick people,
Right.
So this has not been too hard for me, but it's been sometimes so joyful, and other times like just really weird. And sometimes like, yeah, we can't do that, like not most of the time we have not playing inside at all. It's some kind of the majority of all the things are some kind of an outdoor socially distanced kind of a thing. So, you know, the first time or two, it's weird because it's like, oh, okay. But the only thing that makes it, better is the 2 months leading up to the first show. You're playing in front of the computer, in front of, there's no one there, which is just weird to me and bizarre. And we did it, but there's like, you're not playing for anybody. You finish and there's nothing. You have to go look at the computer and read comments to see, like, hey, you sound good. Hey, play this song. So that's weird. And it was short lived for me because I was like, man, I can't do this. It's not. I'll get on there and goof around, but it was just kind of odd. So then getting to play in front of people was good. But, the crowds are small. There was a time there around September. We did a little run in September where we played a handful of shows, and that was the best all year, where it was starting to get this feeling like, hey, people are kind of used to the idea now of wearing a mask, and they're okay with it, and they're comfortable. If they go out and wear a mask and use sanitizer, they shouldn't get sick. And because I haven't gotten sick, and we haven't gotten sick, and we haven't done anything where it was, there was a report where a bunch of people got sick. So I kept thinking, well, we're doing it right. If you wear your mask and you stay back, and this will be okay. So September was pretty good. And now it's, with the election and then the spike. So it's like really weird. I think we're playing this week, but I wouldn't be surprised if they, called later today and said, like, yeah, we can't do tomorrow. Or, we have to cancel Thursday. I'm so used to that now. It's fine. It's more and mostly about, I had a 7-piece band in February, and I've got a 3-piece band today. And I'm trying to keep these 2 guys working. I'm their full-time job. I'm their only full-time job. And I'm just trying to keep them working. I try to get them some money. Trying to, we do other work. We do studio work. We do, we found other ways to make some money. And so we're out trying to do some shows. People, sometimes, man, there's people there and they're not wearing their mask, and they're out. I just stay on stage.
Yeah.
I play, and I say hi, and then I just kind of go backstage or stay on the side, and try not to make a big deal out of it. I don't want to get in the middle of all that with people. If they don't want to wear their mask and they want to get sick, then it's on them.
Well, if it was only them, it wouldn't be an issue. But it's other people.
It's that they're gonna go around. The biggest thing that I asked, we had one show this weekend. It was going to be outside. I knew there would be more people at this than anything I've probably done all year. And they wanted me to come play, and they said, you're worried that, I said, well, I'm just going to stay, I'll just stay away from the people. I've learned I can do it. It's no problem. And they said, yeah, there could be a lot of people there, and we don't know if they'll all wear masks. And I said, so are you going to be open anyway? Yeah. And I said, so are you going to have something going on? Oh yeah. It's going on whether you're there or not. And I was like, well, all right, then we'll just be there. Like, I'm not bringing them out necessarily. I'm not,
right.
That's the one thing. It's kind of made me, I don't go on and try to get people to come out. I just kind of, if they're doing something and there's something going on and they want me to play and it's going to be good for everybody, I go play.
Right.
Gosh, we could count it on our hands and toes, what we did since March.
As a player, what has this done to you?
I honestly think I've gotten better. Like all those things we talked about earlier, I've had a lot of time to practice this year, which I never have. really enjoyed my time this year at home with my family. And I mean, like, I've really enjoyed playing my instrument this year. I've practiced. I get up in the morning and practice, and I go on and learn new chords and things. And so I feel like my playing has elevated this year. Like I feel even more confident. The other thing, when you're always going, 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 it's like you're really good at the show. Like, oh, I know how to do this show. Like I got it down. I know how these songs go. I know, feel very comfortable. But I'm not necessarily learning or writing songs or doing anything new, because you're just trying to maintain doing a good show night after night after night. So it's my playing, I think, is stronger, is better, and my mind is well off this year from getting kind of a break.
But I wonder, like, with all the years of touring that you've done, and it's been go 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 for many many years, and then all of a sudden things come to a stop, and you're stuck in Europe trying to get home, right at the beginning of the pandemic,
Oh yeah,
and then you decide you're going to quarantine yourselves, but at the same time, write songs and create a new album, and make it available and ask for donations so that it would help pay for the money that you lost, and then if I'm not mistaken, for a little while you did like a podcast or an interview series with various musicians. So it just seemed like the first few months you were still go, go, go. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's hard. This year it's been a real learning process for all of us, obviously. And again, like I said earlier, like it's still so overwhelming. I didn't realize the online. It just, I was forced online this year.
Right.
Because my inclination is to go down to the corner bar and set up and play, or go get in the van and drive and go do a show. Like, that's just how my head works. When that tour first canceled, I mean, I lost so much money. I mean, I'd bought all these flights, and I always feel like I have this obligation, to the musicians. They're going home with what would have been usually their biggest tour month, where they get to go play like 30 shows, and they make really good money to being, like the side musician to come home. They make like almost 2 months pay in 1 month, and they're going home empty-handed. And it was like, well, okay, well, I'll think of something. How can I help these guys? We made a record, and we made it not together at all. We made a full record, and I forced myself to write 10 new songs. And we made a record virtually. Like, I played my parts and then put it in the Dropbox, and the drummer put his parts in the Dropbox. And I didn't know we could do that, and we did it. And I gave it away. When I told the fans, if you can donate something, we're going to split this with the band and help pay for the flights. And we raised $20,000. So I was able to give those guys each $5,000. We just split it even, and they were able to pay their bills and, cover themselves. But that was just the first month,
Yeah.
And then it caught on, and all these musicians were out of work. So then I opened it up, and we raised another $26,000 for 26 musicians. We gave every one of them $1,000. So, early on it was like you thought, well, maybe this is just going to be short-lived, but right now everybody's hurting. So everybody was contributing and helping, and there was all this kind of stuff going on. And then I think by summer it was like, hey, this is not ending, and everybody's suffering.
Yeah.
So enough asking people to give you money, because they need their money too. So that ended, and then the podcast thing was like, I was like, well, I always want to do some kind of thing like that, and I did that for a while, and then it was that was for no money. I was just trying to keep busy and entertain the fans, and it became very hard. to maintain 2 a week and get people lined up and get them to learn how to use Zoom. And,
Yeah, yeah,
you know what I'm talking about.
for
It was a
sure.
whole thing. So you're right. That early on, I mean, I really tried to, partly because I thought, I don't know if we can maintain. How do we maintain this? And then it, we just learned to adapt. And after a while, it was like, hey, expenses are way less when you stay home than when you go on the road. That's
Right.
expensive to go on the road and live on the road. And it's really inexpensive to stay home. And my wife teaches, so she's still getting paid. And so I just started to slow down and started to do other things and practice and write songs and work in the studio. And I kind of wore out the social media thing. I was like, yeah, I've kind of had enough of that. So I just started to kind of, yeah, you know, take a break from it all. And then some shows started to open up and we started to play a little bit. And, I mean, my goal at this point would be to just, if we could go back out and play next year, that would be great.
Has your
That's really
writing
fun.
changed this year? Because of this experience, has it been easy to
Uh,
write new songs? And has you said that you've also been improving your playing? Has that
yeah.
affected your writing?
Well, I'm always trying to, writing to me is always kind of based on a need for, like a project. Like, I
Right,
don't always just sit and write songs. I just sit and noodle guitar. And then because writing songs can come easier for me than guitar playing. So, because I've just, like, that's something I've always kind of done. My mom wrote poetry. I just can always, I'm not the best songwriter, but can kind of, get my feelings down in words. And so I need a project. So, like, that quarantine opportunity was like, oh, this is a good project. Like, um, you know, you have to write 10 new songs and record them and release it in 14 days. So let's go. And
right.
then, like, I can do that. But if it was like, hey, why don't you write some songs today? I'm like, I don't have a reason to. Why am I, why? Why
So
am I
things
doing
don't just
that?
come to you?
I need like, I need like some kind of a deadline or some kind of I need something to work off of. Like, I'm
Right.
producing a record. Yeah, then it kind of comes to me. I pick up the guitar. I start to, that was a different writing because I wasn't in the room with the band. We weren't together. So playing maybe like blues music seemed a little, that record and recording's a little more rock and roll. Kind of did that on purpose. I didn't want to, it was supposed to be like just a little side project, something,
Right.
not a real album release, just something to give the fans, something to pay the bills, something to kind of do. So I kind of went out of I made out on purpose. I kind of went out of my comfort zone and wrote a little more rockin' stuff. And
What did you learn from writing out of your comfort zone?
Well, and not to contradict. I mean, you're right. I don't necessarily write every day. Like I do consider myself a songwriter, but I know like a like a real songwriter. I assume they're just writing songs all the time. And for me, I seem like I need some kind of a project in mind or some kind of a goal that that I'm gonna kind of use it for. And one of my friends, Anders Osborne, who is a great songwriter, who's based in New
Mm-hmm.
Orleans, he taught me. He said, just act like you have a project all the time. He goes, just go like, oh, well, that's going to be for my country album. He goes, um, even if you never make it, just um, he goes, just that'll kind of trick you into writing songs. But I do better when I have like a little bit of a deadline or a project that I'm working on. And I don't know if it was out of my comfort zone to write like rock songs. I think I think it was fun. it's something that I don't always do. But what I find is I can write for the project at hand better than just kind of willy nilly, like, hey, I wrote this song today. But if I have an idea, like, I've been cast in a play or a movie, and this is the character you're going to portray, and then I think about, oh, okay, then I start to think about the songs like that way, kind of that the album has a story and who is my character, and then I even when they're my own records, even when it's a very personal record, if it's about a particular time in my life, which I've done, then I think about that me and that time and who I was and what I was surrounded by. So, and I don't know that this is so uncommon. I can't imagine that it is.
No, but once you decide to do that project, whatever it might be, your next recording project, then does the process, is it easy to write?
It's easier. Yes, it's much easier for me once I kind of put that together. And when I'm specifically doing like my own record, and I'm gonna go, and there's no pandemic or quarantine, or there's just hey, I'm thinking about my next record, and let's say it's December now, and in my head, I mean, I'm just thinking of this. Maybe my next record would come out in January of 2022. I would start thinking ahead of that album. And what do I want to do? What do I want to say? What kind of album do I want to make? And so then I'll start to write songs, and I put them in a box, and I think, okay, and I start there, and then over that year, that box will change because I'm not really sure what I want to do or what I'm going to do, and a lot of times it becomes more evident in the writing. Like, I'll go back and go, okay, you're kind of writing these kind of songs, or okay, like they're starting to be a theme, and I start to piece together a story. And then maybe, 3 or 4 months out, I start to have a real idea of what I want to do. And then I'll really start writing some songs because it's come together. So it always seems like it kind of takes that amount of time. So in this particular situation with this Quarantine Blues album, I mean, there was certainly none of that time. And that's kind of what made it challenging and interesting and fun was, okay, you got 2 weeks. Can you write 10 songs and record them and finish them? And so there's like an immediacy to the music that I think is interesting. I don't know that I'd ever, not that this is a super special record to the world, but for me it is. Like, I'm never going to be in that situation, that exact situation ever again. And that's the music that kind of came out of it. And maybe that's why it was more rockin', was kind of like, there's a little angst and, in it, that like we were this turmoil, like we're getting shipped off back home. We're all coming back broke. What the hell is going on? What are we going to do? What is this? Like, what, there was all this emotion, and that probably created more rock and roll. It seemed, gosh, like this with that script, the music and the songs just kind of came together pretty easy, I think I mentioned earlier to you, Lyle Lovett, who is a great songwriter in Texas. One of his best quotes to me is, "No one wants to hear how great your life is." Like, no one's interested in the songs you're writing about how happy you are. And yeah. I've written songs like that because I'm happy and joyous, and then I notice you don't get all of the audience. People want to hear music that's moody and moving and has other emotions in it. And I think that's what we tapped on this one, was tapped into some, you know, some aggression and angst, some things that aren't normally there in my everyday life, being sober and clean and thankful and grateful. But maybe people don't want to hear about that all the time, you know?
So a couple of things. One is that that Pandemic Blues album just got listed as one of the top 20 blues albums of the year in a magazine.
That's nice.
So that must be quite rewarding.
That's nice to know that I didn't consider I was really putting an album out. It was just kind of like a project in the spur of the moment. We didn't really get behind it and promote it and do something, you know, like we normally would. And to have it still get such a good response just from the fan base is super awesome, you know.
The other thing that you've alluded to a couple of times, and we've talked about this in the past, is about your past addiction and your sobriety. So I wonder, and I hope you don't mind me asking, but you talked about being in the 30s and not being responsible enough or have it together enough that you let some opportunities pass by.
Sure.
Can I ask you what was it that made you realize that you need to change your life?
Oh man, it was
was there a moment?
Well, there was definitely a moment, but it was just a culmination of so many things, you know. I mean, I was really, it's hard to believe maybe now, but I was really like as bad as you can get, like as bad as you see in a TV show or a movie. Like I had, you know, abandoned children and family and didn't own a car or was homeless and out on the streets and, you know, begging on the corner and stealing. And even if that was, you know, that was maybe for like it was just bad for the better part of a month. And then but it never elevated much higher than that. And then I got an offer to go from being basically, you know, a drifter to move into Texas and working for Fender Guitars through a long-term friend of mine that was a Fender rep that I had known since I was a teenager. And of course, they didn't know I was, you know, on drugs. And I thought, this is my chance. I can get off the streets. I can get my family back. This is going to be good. And it paid like, you know, nothing rich, but maybe $40,000 a year. And I was literally living on the streets. So I thought, oh, this is it. This is going to solve my problems. I'll be able to send money to my family and be responsible, but then I'll also have plenty of money to party and be wild. And I went the other way. I mean, within a year, there was like 6 months of like kind of being homeless. And then about 5 months of like, all of a sudden I was making all this money and I somehow just ended up with an apartment in Dallas and I had this money and started doing this job and I kind of got myself together for a few months and which I could kind of always do. And then I started, you know, going down that road again, hardcore, and I had plenty of money to buy drugs, and then there was too much drugs. Like it was like I always thought I just never had enough, and then there was too much. I would stay in a hotel room for 7 days and not come out, and there would still be drugs left. Like there was so much. I couldn't do it all. I'd make myself sick. And there's a saying in one of the recovery programs that 1 is too many and 1,000 is never enough. And I think I finally, well, one, I met my wife. I met a woman that really cared for me, and she could tell like something was wrong, like with me, that I seem to feel bad about what I was doing, but I didn't seem to be able to stop doing it. And she goes, I think there's something wrong with you. And I don't think I'd ever considered that. I just thought, well, I must be a bad person. And I think it was just the culmination of all those experiences. And I tried to get sober, and then I had one more run at it. And I went and stayed out for 7 or 8 days. And at the end of that, I realized, like, yeah, there's something wrong. Like, one is too many. I felt like there's never enough. And once I start, I can't stop. And my intention is never to, hey, I'm going to go lose my job this weekend and get kicked out of the house and not be able to see my kids and spend all my money and, get locked up, or like, that's not the intention. My intention is, hey, let's go have a beer after work and have fun like normal people. Except that it doesn't stop once it starts. Like, it goes until I'm physically stopped. And that last time something clicked. What she told me and what I learned in the meeting and the experience I had the past year. And I was like, yeah, there's something wrong. I have to go back to that meeting. There's something wrong with me. I got scared of myself. Quite literally, like, I'm afraid if I don't go back now, my mind's going to trick me again. Like, I think I'm crazy. And I was. I am still to some degree, But you can't be crazy if you know that you're crazy.
Right.
Usually people that have mental illness don't realize they're mentally ill. And that realization was it. And I went straight back to a recovery group, and I've stayed, there for 17 years. Quite willing to think that, well, I'll never play music again. I can't go to a bar anymore. I can't be around this anymore. But I'll have to, because it's either that or death,
Right.
I wish I could sell, if I could sell that experience to people, if I could get people to understand what I'm telling you that have the same affliction, I would be like a millionaire. I would be so rich. We could sell it and bottle it. But everybody has to have that experience, and most don't, because the mental illness is so bad, they don't ever quite get that realization,
Yeah. I wonder, okay, so there's something about you that's very honest and upfront. You're willing to talk about anything, and I think you with your blog, you also reveal a lot about yourself, and I presume with your songs as well. Mm-hmm. That honesty, which I think is part of who you are now, I'm not sure if that honesty was there during your addiction.
Oh, no.
So how do you become this honest person? Is that just part of the process to be able to, I mean, not only the honesty, which is, I think, a huge part of who you are, but, the other thing I was going to mention is I've done a few interviews with other people, and your name has come up, and you're so well respected.
Wow, that's wonderful.
And then and that doesn't surprise me, but in the last couple of months, I think your name has come up 2 or 3 times. And every time the person is mentioned, or the people who have mentioned you, have spoken about you with a great deal of respect and
well, good.
admiration.
I'm getting my money's worth. That's good. I've been paying these people for years, so it's nice to know that.
Well, it's working.
No, that's very nice. That means a lot, for sure.
But did that honesty, was it difficult to get to that point of being a more honest person within yourself?
Yeah, I think it's what I would have always wanted to be. Of course, I think religion aside, I think everyone has a version of themselves that they would like to be, and they long to be, but maybe they don't ever get there, or maybe they're working on, they're trying. But I think for me, the type of dishonesty that was going on was from, very young and from who knows what, maybe traumatic, who knows where that comes from. But that kind of dishonesty is not, I don't believe is normal. Most folks don't deal with it. And so I always tell people, before I ever used drugs or alcohol, I was a thief. I was a liar, a cheat. I was extremely dishonest. I believed all of my dishonesty. And I would say or do whatever I could to get what I wanted or what I pleased, as long as it worked for me. Like I had no issue with being dishonest at all. And in fact, I don't even know if I thought it was dishonest. I think maybe I thought that was my truth, like that's that kind of thinking is so ill. And when someone is that way, I don't think they even realize they are, I don't think they're even considerate. So when I got sober, clean and sober, I was not to be trusted before that. It wasn't, of course, once you put the drugs and the alcohol in, well, then it severely exacerbated that behavior. So I might have been somewhat trusted through life until, the last 3 years, where now you're dealing with drugs and addiction, and then it's, you're really dishonest. Like people won't trust you in their house. They don't want you to be around they take their pocketbook or their purse, and hold on to it. And so the first thing getting clean and sober is the first thing you're going to learn to do is to be like cash register honest, because you cannot be dishonest anymore. You can't do anything that will put you in a corner where the only way out is to drink or use drugs again. So
Right.
if I were to lie or cheat or steal, if I stole money from you and you confronted me, then I'm putting myself in that corner where I either have to tell you I stole from you, or I'm going to lie about it. And if I lie, then I'm going to believe the lie again, and I'll go drink or use again. So really, I learned, like the addiction, it forces you. If you want to stay clean and sober, you have to be honest, even against your own will. It's kind of like a child, like you go, look, if you don't do this, if you don't do the right thing, I'm going to spank you. And the child goes, well, okay, the only reason I'm going to do the right thing is so you won't hit me. Not because they think the right thing is the right thing to do. But I don't want this consequence. And it's exactly that. It's like you start over, and so you start with cash register honesty, and you're like, okay, hey, look, I didn't steal anything today. And everyone goes, oh, that's great. And we never steal, I guess we're proud of you. That's good, And then you start to pay your bills on time and start to learn this process of honesty. And most people that I've learned, that I know, that go through this process, that have been through this process before me or after me, they're the same way generally. If you're gonna stay clean and sober this long, that honesty prevails. It's the only thing that you have to. It's like it matters so much. So for me, it just kind of came natural. In fact, songwriting immediately sober was like, oh wow, I have something to write about, like something like serious to write about. Before it was just, hey, let's party and girls are good looking and just dumb stuff. And now it was like, oh, I started to write. I wrote a song called "Slow It Down," which is a pretty good song, but it was like a blues rock song about about addiction, and I was started to write songs about addiction and recovery. And then people started to notice, like, hey, that was a pretty good song. Like, you're sharing some of yourself in your music. And that seemed to really, get people's attention. And I started to realize, like, oh, yeah, well, that's what I like about all these other musicians or songwriters is when they're like sharing part of their story, they're opening up. So that process has just been part of my recovery process. I've never been more open than I am right now. Because even if I was able to write those songs or to be that honest, I would still be it's been a long road of like, I get on stage and I want to just be open in front of you and let it all loose. And I still kind of, now I see all of the warts. I hear all the bad notes. Oh, that doesn't sound good. Now I start to become very obsessive compulsive with all of but where I'm at right now, that's been kind of lifted as well. Like, so I'm very open. It's a great place. It's a great way to live.
I can imagine.
I have nothing to hide. I'm not embarrassed or ashamed or, I just kind of let it all hang out. And there's a confidence in that that's taken till I was 50 to finally get.
But you said that you were almost willing. You would be willing to give up music for this. I mean, there was a chance.
back then. I had to kind of. Of course, I wasn't really playing music anyway at all. But one of the last things in my head was like, man, they're not ever going to let me play music. And up till then, I only played music in a bar. I thought, well, they're not going to let you go to a bar. I don't know who I thought they were.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, well, okay, maybe I'll get to play in the church or I'll get to, but, it's not working. But within a year, I got to play again at a bar. And all of these people from this recovery group who were all so supportive of me, they came to the bar and they all set up in front of me and sat and watched me play and kind of blocked the bar. So that, I just focused on the music. Like, they were so supportive and they started to come out like all the time. And they taught me, that when I'm spiritually correct and I'm there to do work, I can go anywhere.
Right.
I can go anywhere and do anything if I'm there for the right reason.
How long did it take for you to feel comfortable in your own skin again?
Like this year.
Wow.
I mean, it's been gradual, I'm sure. Right?
Yeah.
I remember that like a year and a half of being sober and getting to play again. And, oh my gosh, everything sounded terrible. I mean, I wasn't drunk anymore. I could tell. I always had it in me that I could be good, and I had some physical talent, but I could hear like, oh man, that doesn't sound good. And then the band doesn't sound good, and they're not playing it right, and I'm not playing it right. I would like pitch a fit on the stage in front of people because, things were not what I wanted them to be. It's been a long process, to get this. Even in the Royal Southern Brotherhood, that's one of the last things I remember. Like, I was so not ready to be in that band at all. Like, I didn't understand it. I was still learning. I was going seriously through the blues world, trying to learn, and was like, man, I don't get this. What are we doing? Like, why do people like this? But there was such an energy on stage with that band, and I was like afraid of it or not comfortable with things being so open and live, if I could be in that band all over again now, oh man, we could really have. I would have gone 110%.
But you also said that it was a bigger machine, and you weren't really happy with that machine.
Sure. I mean, definitely. I mean, that's definitely something I'm not very good at following direction at all, ever. And that's part of my problem, I'm sure.
But so when you said, okay, I don't like the size of this thing, this machine, did that change your perspective, your own career, or how you would go about dealing with your own career?
Yeah, I think partly I'm selfish, and I probably thought, well, why isn't everybody excited about this just being me? Like, why does it have to be all of us? Like, why do I have to share this? I'm sure that went through my head. I'm sure it went through Devin's head too. I mean, we were just, younger dudes, and like, why do we have to? I just never been in a band situation like that before. I'm sure that was part of it. But I think another part of it was just, I didn't like that. I kind of kept being told, like, I need to do this, you have to do this, you need to do that. You need to dress this way, you need to do this. Well, there's things that probably are exactly what you're supposed to do when you're going to be in a famous rock and roll band, or,
Right.
I just hated it. I was like,
Wow.
This is really stupid. If you go look at the very first pictures from the first album of the Royal Southern Brotherhood, everybody's wearing black except Mike Zito. He's wearing a plaid cowboy shirt on purpose, because I was like, I'm not doing that. They're like, look, man, we're going to all wear black. We're going to do this. I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. And I remember, I think it was Devin or somebody was like, what are you doing, man? I thought we were doing this. And I was like, no, it's fine. This looks good. Just, that's me. And that, even though it seems minute, but, I was probably like that at every twist and turn.
Right.
In that band. I feel sorry for those guys.
I remember seeing you in Chicago with that band, and I think it was pretty early on in the band's formation. I can't remember the name of the bar that I saw you in, but it was a pretty amazing show.
It was a great band. So.
You did a tribute to Chuck Berry.
I did.
And, one of the things when I was growing up, which was a long time ago, you would hear Chuck Berry at all the dances and places. But you don't hear Chuck Berry, or at least I don't hear Chuck Berry anymore that much.
Right.
What was the thought process? Was it just because you grew up with his music? Because as a guitar player, everybody played Johnny B. Good? Tell me about...
Sure.
And also the St. Louis connection.
Right. It's all of those things above, and then also just, growing up in St. Louis and being born in 1970, and you're interested in playing guitar, and I work at a neighborhood guitar store in the city. I mean, Chuck Berry's still alive and well and rocking. I was in high school. They were doing the movie Hail, Hail, Rock and Roll at the Fox Theater.
Right.
In St. Louis, and I was in high school. That was all over the news, that Eric Clapton and Jeff Beck, Keith Richards, and all these people were going to be there. And he came in the music store that I worked at. His son, who played in the band with him in the 90s, came in the music store, who I'm still, good friends with and close with. And it was like hey man, if you're going to go play any of these gigs, you're going to have to learn how to play these licks and songs. All those double stops on the guitar, all that, like, they're necessary. And if you think they're necessary everywhere, they're mandatory in St. Louis. Like, You can't. And I was like probably on the last. I was probably in the last group of people that like, yeah, you got to know how to do this in St. Louis, because then the kind of the 90s rock stuff took over and the music scene started to change in St. Louis. And maybe they didn't play that music, but I came in playing in cover bands when I was 18 and 19 with older people. And you had to know all that shit. You just did.
Yeah.
And so I learned it all. And I've just, it's to this day, it's like Chuck Berry and Van Halen are like, those are the go-to licks if I'm playing guitar or jamming or doing whatever. It's kind of like that's what I know that's in the back of my head all the time. And so that was, that's what it means to me. And then I think the other part of it was I had this idea for quite a while. And then he passed. And then I wanted, I was like, we should really do this record. And the record label said, no, let's wait. And then he put out his last record. His family put out his last record. So we kind of just waited a little longer. And then I contacted his family. And I said, look, this is what I want to do. I just love that music. Now, you do hear that music down here on the Gulf Coast still.
Okay.
Down south. And older rock and roll, like 50s rock and roll, where I live, is called swamp pop. That's anything like Chubby Checker, Little Richard, Chuck Berry. That's swamp pop music. And it's still very popular. In fact, I mean, with young people, like you could go to, a bar and it's crazy. They'll play like hip hop or dance music, and then like Cajun music, and then Chubby Checker, and the kids are all dancing to all of it. It's crazy.
I presume when you approached other guitar players to play on this album, it was probably not a hard sell.
No, I got just about everybody that I asked. There was a couple of people that had record label issues that weren't able to commit. But pretty much, I had more people than I had songs and room on the album. We could have done a double album. We could have done, do a volume 2. Like it was, everyone was excited and interested. And I actually got friends like, hey man, can I play on this record? I heard you making this record. A couple of things where I was like, I felt bad. Like I couldn't, and I'm sorry, I don't have any room. We're struggling to make it all fit on one album. So, but leaving a long leeway, I say it took about 9 months to completely put the whole thing together. If you're going to get a Joe Bonamassa to play on the record, you gotta give him time.
Right.
To here's the song, and Joe, you got 6 months. Whenever you get a second, it's on your time. So that definitely helps.
So the final thing I want to ask you, and for anybody who noticed that the sound quality or sound changed, this interview is actually taking place over almost like a 2-week period. The first part taking place while you were on the road, and we had some connection problems, so we've followed up 2 weeks later. But my final question is, you also created your own label. What was the thinking behind that?
Well, I built a recording studio behind my house with my wife and my partner, Guy Hale, who is based in the United Kingdom. We've been friends since the Royal Southern Brotherhood, and just a great, wonderful person. And he's a great songwriter. And we had this building, and so we built this recording studio, and we started we made First Class Life out there. We started to produce records out there. I started to be able to make my own music, and it was like, you know, competition worthy recording. And we had good stuff and good, because I've been producing a lot. And my partner Guy come about a year later and he goes, I'm retiring. He's a businessman. And, you know, we did the studio. What are we doing next? What's the next project? I'm ready to get into something. I said, well, the only thing I can think of is we do a record label, you know, but it should be small and just help, you know, very beginning artists, you know, do something simple. But my partner's never done anything simple or easy in his life. He's owned multi-million-dollar businesses, and he's a go-getter. So within the first 3 months, we were buying the Albert Castiglia Masterpiece album from Earth Records to put out, and that was like the game changer. And then we just got thrust into it. It was like, okay, so I guess we're doing this. I envisioned just a little project on the side, and now it's 100% all we do.
And what have you learned from that? Like, as a musician who's always, well, you've put out albums on your own before, have you not?
But not like this.
Okay.
You know?
So what?
Well, you know, I've learned a lot producing over the years. On the other end, working with Ruth Records,
right.
You know, on like deadlines and all this. So I was able to bring all that in, and I mean, golly, what have I learned? So much. I mean, we've made lots of mistakes. You know, we got really lucky on some things, and then we realized they weren't luck. It was timing and how we time things, and you know, making sure there's plenty of lead time into an album, that it's not rushed out. And, you know, some things work and some things don't, you know.
Right.
And with all this digital stuff and all of the YouTube and all the fame and fortune to be found on, I don't know about fortune, let's say fame, to be found on YouTube and streaming and, you know, the viral world of like, all of a sudden you're getting all these views and all this, that most of that does not equate to hardly any album sales at all.
Right.
That album sales are still based on touring and getting in front of people. Absolutely in like the blues roots genre. You know, we have some artists that have done really well online, but until they went out and got on the road, that's when they sold records, you know. And that's what sells records. You got to build a fan base. And I'm lucky enough, like with Talkin Blues, to put that album out and to see it do well because I've been on the road for almost 20 years. So it's worked, you know, touring works. So hopefully this will all change in the next year and we'll kind of get back at it. And I think our label is doing well, but I think it'll do really well once we can get back out on the road and promote the artists. You know, it's been challenging and it's quite freeing. Of course, I can do anything I want at this point, but I can do anything I want, and if anything doesn't work, it's all on me. Like, but I told you I'm 50 now, and I've got this. I don't want to say I don't care attitude, but this, like, I'm very open about it. So I'm just going to do what I like to do and not worry so much, like, is this the next most successful thing I can do? But is this the next thing I want to do? And I think the fans that are really fans, they'll appreciate it or like it. You know?
Right. Mike, thanks so much for doing this and taking all this time with me. I always enjoy talking to you, and I really appreciate you doing this.
Well, I enjoyed talking to you, for sure.
All the best to you, and I look forward to hearing what's to come around, both from your label and from your music.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Hopefully I'll see you in person one of these days.
Yes.